Welcome. This session is being ex- exclusively devoted for the most blissful exercise to be face to face with format features and values of Formulation Ganita Sutra. Let us sit comfortably. Let us permit our transcending mind to be parallel with the organization format features and values of the Formulation Ganita Sutra. The Formulation Ganita Sutra is a composition of a pair of words, Ganit and Sutra. The word formulation Ganit is a composition of 6 letters Ga, A, Ana, I, Ta, and A. These 6 letters make 3 syllables. The second word Sutra is a composition of 5 letters which compose a pair of syllables. As such, the Formulation Ganita Sutra, which is a composition of a pair of words of 3 plus 2, 5 syllables, and 6 plus 5 is equal to 11 letters in all. Therefore, to be face to face with this format feature and the exercise to glimpse and imbibe the format features of this formulation, we have to phase it in 11 steps parallel to 11 letters of this formulation, and we have to be sequentially through the phase, each phase for values and features parallel to the values and features of the corresponding letter. The first phase is the phase parallel to the format features and values of first letter Ga. The first letter Ga is of third placement of first row of Varga consonants. Being third placement of the first row, as such it has TC value 3, and further it being of third placement, so it is in the role of a domain fold. 3 as 3 space content in the role of a domain will manifest as 3 space content lump as domain fold of hypercube 3. Therefore, the sadhakas fulfilled with intensity efforts to be parallel with format features of the Formulation Ganita Sutra shall be consciously face to face with it, being having initiation of a domain fold in the context of 3 space content. So 3 space content manifests as the domain fold of hypercube 3. Therefore, the initiation of comprehension of format features and values of Formulation Ganita Sutra is going to be parallel with the role of 3 space content as 3 space domain fold of hypercube 3. It is this initiation which will help us appreciate as to how the Vedic mathematical domain is realistic in its foundation and its initiation, beginning with the 3 space content itself. The initiation, the starting point of the Vedic mathematical processes, Vedic mathematical reach is from the foundational stage of a 3 space content. The second phase is parallel to the format features of the second letter. The second letter of the Formulation Ganita Sutra is the first vowel O. The first vowel is of format parallel to one space. It is as one space in the role of a dimension. Therefore, in the context of the first letter Ga as of value 3 in the role of 3 space as domain fold of 3 space at the next step takes us to one space in the role of dimension of 3 space. One shall sit comfortably and be parallel with this sequential organization of the formulation initiated by the first letter as a 3-space domain, and at the next step it has a reach to one space in the role of a dimension. It is this interrelationship, it is this progression, it is this coordination, it is this transition which deserves to be comprehended well. It is with this comprehension we will be face to face with the organizing feature of the domain and a dimension. The most intimate organization feature of the mathematical domains of geometric formats is the intimate coordination of the domain with its dimensional order. Therefore, the Vedic mathematical domain of geometric format of Formulation Ganita Sutra of its first pair of phases, first pair of steps is in the form of coordination, interrelationship of 3 space as domain and 1 space as a dimension. A step ahead at the third phase and stage of this organization, there is a reach at third letter, namely Ana of TC value 7. One may have a pause here and take note that the letter Ana is the 5th letter of the third row of the Varga consonants. It being of a 5th placement of the third row, so as such Ana as value 7 is in the role of the base of an origin, the base of an origin of 3 space as in a dynamic state. 3 space in the dynamic state constituting solid order in its 5th step will take us to 7th space in the role of the base fold. Further, we know that cube as hypercube 3 is a setup of 7 versions. Cube as 3 space body is of a linear order. Cube as 3 space body of a linear order is of the format organization of 7 geometries range of 3 space with 7 versions of hypercube 3 being the representative regular bodies of 7 geometries of a 3 space. One shall have a pause here and have simultaneous comprehension of the organization features in terms of the first 3 letters, namely G, O, and Ana of TC values range 3, 1, and 7 of geometric formats of 3 space as domain, 1 space as dimension, and 7 space as the base fold. It is this reach of the first 3 steps of the organization of the Formulation Ganita Sutra parallel to the first 3 letters Ga and Ana brings us face to face with the way the 3 space content manifests as the domain fold, and the same in terms of the dimensional order, 1 space in the role of a dimension makes this format being of 7 geometries range, and the 7 versions of hypercube 3 become the representative regular bodies of 7 geometries of 3 space. With this phase and stage of the fourth step is to be faced, and this fourth step is parallel to format features of the fourth letter, namely E. E is the second vowel. It is two space in the role of the dimension. Two space in the role of a dimension means that it is taking us to four space, which is of a spatial order. Therefore, the fourth step in terms of the format features of letter E of TC value 2 of geometric format 2 space in the role of a dimension amounts to the transition from the linear order setup of 3 space to spatial order of 4 space. One shall sit comfortably and permit the transcending mind to be face to face with this sequential progression of the organization of the geometric format being availed. The geometric format, as we have seen at the initiation stage, is the three space format where three space content manifests as three space domain of hypercube 3. Hypercube 3 is a linear order space. Hypercube 3 has 7 geometries range. The origin of 3 space is 4 space. The seventh geometry of 3 space is of the setup of a cube as 3 space content lump free of all of its spatial boundary components. So it is simply a 3 space content lump. This 3 space content lump being devoid of any boundary makes it in the state that its origin, the 4 space, transcends out of it. It is this transcendence of 4 space of spatial order which takes from the setup of 3 space to a 4 space. As such, the fourth phase and stage parallel to format features of fourth letter E amounts to a reach from a linear order 3 space to a spatial order 4 space. The next phase and stage is the stage of format and features of the fifth letter, namely Ta. The letter Ta is of first placement of the fourth row of the Varga consonants, being of first placement, so it is in the role of a dimension fold. 4 space in the role of dimension is the geometric format which comes into play. Therefore, the fourth phase and stage of a reach from linear order 3 space to spatial order 4 space at a next step, at the fifth step, takes to the 4 space itself playing the role of a dimension. As such, the fifth phase and stage is the stage where 4 space is in the role of a dimension. Therefore, the phase and stage of the fifth letter is the reach of a creative dimensional order. 4 space is to play the role of a creative dimensional order of a self-referral space, a 6 space. The sixth phase and stage, the final phase and stage of the formulation Ganit, the first word formulation of Ganita Sutra, is one space. Therefore, the creative order is put in linear progression. So, the initiation with three space content lump manifesting as a domain fold of hypercube 3 of linear order takes to 7 geometries of format of 3 space, and the 7th geometry with its representative body being hypercube 3 divide of all of its 6 surface plates, and as a result thereof there happens transcendence of the origin of a spatial order. Now this spatial order creates a space comes in a dynamic state. Therefore, the result is that the formulation Ganit leads to a format of features and values which amounts to a progression from a three-space content lump in a static state to four-space content in a dynamic state. It is this reach of the formulation Ganit which deserves to be chased further in continuity in terms of the second word formulation, namely Sutra. And as the second formulation, Sutra is a composition of 5 letters, and the first letter of the second formulation Sutra being Sa, it is of TC value 3, and further as Sa is the Ushmana letter. As such, it amounts to the solid order transcending at the origin seat. We see the Ganit formulation has taken us to phase and stage of creative dimensional order in a role to play. So the four space in a dynamic state means restructuring an entry into a 5-space domain. 5-space domain is a solid order space. Therefore, in continuity, the formulation Sutra initiates entry into the solid order space in terms of a solid order. The letter Sa as Ushmana letter of TC value 3 is in the role of a solid order. The transcendence of creative origin from 3-space domain and being in the role of creative dimensional order takes to the transcendental domain of a solid order. With this initiation and with this reach within a 5-space domain, at the next phase and stage of the second letter of the second word formulation Sutra, U as an elongated third vowel takes to the dimensional synthesis phenomenon as the pair of solid dimensions synthesize value 5 parallel to the 5-space as domain. Therefore, the second phase and stage of reach in terms of the second letter of the second formulation Sutra in continuity of the first letter Sa amounts to the synthesis of the solid order as pair of solid order dimensions within a transcendental domain. The next phase and stage is the stage of the third letter of the second formulation, and it is tau of TC value 4 of the geometric format of 4 space, which we have seen is already in a dynamic state. Therefore, the pair of solid dimensions getting synthesized within transcendental domain and same standing organized as per the spatial order of the creators of space. With this reach, the further chase steps comes to be in terms of the fourth letter, which is the anthasta ref, the second letter in its dynamic state. It is this dynamic state of a linear order at the boundary. Linear order at the boundary. It is the order which is in continuity of the creative space playing the role of creative boundary of the transcendental domain. It is this culmination of the happening within the domain as well as at the boundary, and that too in terms of its dimensional frames, which brings us face to face with the way the entire phenomenon of the dimensions within the domain and at the boundary gets merged within the origin, which in respect of the 5 space is a 6 space, a self-referral domain in the role of an origin of transcendental domain with creative boundary and solid dimensional order. It is this organization which finally gets organized as of linear progression. The happening within the self-referral origin, 6 space as origin of transcendental domain, a 5 space enveloped within a creative boundary, and there being a spatial order at the boundary, solid order within the domain, and the entire integrated setup being put in a dynamic state. One shall have a pause here and be blissful as to the happening within a space. One will have a pause here and take note that the ultimate linear progression of the integrated reservoir of the features of the dimensional order, boundary, and the domain all together will take us face to face with the TC value of the first vowel A being 8, which is parallel to the TC value of the Akash. It is this reach of this format as a reach within an Akash. We know Akash is the fifth element, Panch Tattva. Now this Akash Tattva being the fifth element, it sequentially unfolds as of 5 phases and stages. This five-fold unfolding process of Akash as value 18 sequentially takes us to 17, which is 2 into 8 plus 1. It is parallel to the 17 versions of hypercube 8. The next step, hypercube 17, takes us to 35 versions. Hypercube 35 takes us to 71 versions. Hypercube 71 takes us to 143 versions. And finally, in the fifth stage, hypercube 143 takes us to 287 versions. see these sequential five-fold geometric setups, and these five folds with a quadruple gaps would mean that it is the phenomenon of the transcendental origin of the creator's space. Therefore, the value 287 as 283 plus 4 brings us face to face with the 283 value being parallel to 283 letters setup of the Ganita Sutras. It is this reach of the organization format features of Formulation Ganita Sutra being of values parallel to the values of the total letters of all the 16 Ganita Sutras. It is a blissful reach, and one shall sit comfortably and to permit the transcending mind to sequentially glimpse all these features and values of this format. With this glimpsing, one will be acquiring proper insight and appropriate enlightenment about the Vedic mathematical domain, the Vedic mathematics processing steps, Vedic mathematics reservoir of pure and applied values. Thank you very much.